Welcome back to the DSR channel, where I optimize for fun, right? Trying to lower the overhead of D&D so people can have more fun with it, okay? And I'm going over the book that came out this week called Eberron, Forge of the Artificer, and I'm finishing off all the feats in that book in this video. I did all the Dragonmark feats that are like equivalent but of origin feats, but are not the same. And in this one, I'm going to go over all the general feats and the epic boon. And there's some good ones here, so it's worthwhile, I think. And my goal for this week was to get to 2,000, and we're nearly halfway there, which is awesome. I mean, that's a big goal, but it already feels great. So thanks everybody who's supporting me along this way on this journey, and let's get into the feats. There you go. You can see all of these on the screen as well as the epic boon. So if that's all you cared about, not only can you see this all right now, you can also get it off the Google Drive that's linked in the description. So just go there. You can see this Google Sheet, download it, do whatever you want with it. Use it to slice and dice. I hope it helps. And somebody asked in one of the comments today or in the last 24 hours, why does the name matter? And this is something that I'd always kind of been, it's always been kind of tickling my brain in the back there. But it solidified when I saw an interview with Mike Merles, who was one of the designers for D&D like a decade ago, and he's now with another tabletop RPG game company. But he talked about how important it was to reduce the overhead of the game, right? By naming things according to what they're supposed to do, right? And not just according to what they're supposed to do, make it so that if you want to achieve something, you could just look for the name of those things that look like they achieve that thing, and then that should make sense, right? And he used the example of the archery fighting style, right? If I want to be a good archer, oh, boom, archery fighting style. That sounds like what I want, and it does that. It's quite good at it, right? And he talked about how important that was, right? Certainly, there's those some of us players who really enjoy slicing and dicing things where the name has a lesser impact on us because we're going to go read the whole thing and probably commit it to memory anyway, or it's just commit it to memory to some degree. But I think we're kidding ourselves if we say that that is never a factor, right? When you scan down a list of like over 100 feats that we have now, and you're making yet another character, it's starting somewhere in the mid tiers, uh, and you're trying to figure out what do I want this character to be, and you definitely reach a point. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You reach a point where you're mentally exhausted, your decision making capacity is exhausted, and you start just making quick decisions based on like, oh, it sounds like what I want, so I'm just going to take that, or I'm going to skip over that because it doesn't sound like what I want, and I'm going to focus on the things that I probably already know and remember well. For me, this definitely happens when I hit spells. Like if I'm making a full caster that's a tier 3 or 4, yeah, the first tier, like levels 1 through 3 of spells, yep, I lock that in and do it well. But then I start getting exhausted after levels 5 of spells, I think is usually what happens, and I just start saying like, oh, does that sound like what I want? Does it, you know? Or I just default back to, well, I know that what that one does, so I'm just going to stick with that, and I'm not going to read 100 more spells to figure out which is the best here. And so for that, I think it's really important that things are named appropriately, that they describe in the shortest amount of text they possibly can, describe the demographic of who would want them and what it does for you. Yeah. So I do rank it down like bomber. I rank down specifically because it's called bomber and does nothing to help bombs. It doesn't help bombs at all. Doesn't help you do damage with bombs or range with bombs. It does nothing to help you with bombs. And so I rank that one down explicitly for that. Um, so yeah, the name matters because what I'm trying to do is not help you optimize for power. What I'm trying to do is reduce the cognitive load overhead of this game, right? So that you can make the decisions faster. And really good optimizers, maybe can take like my lower rank things and turn them into something really great. I fully expect that, right? Because when I say it's a rank C or D, one of the things I'm saying is this probably doesn't do what you want, or is not, or it seems like it's for this whole demographic, but it is not for this whole demographic, right? You would have to do something very specialized here to make that work really well. Um, and that's kind of my problem with like Emerald Enclave, the Emerald Enclave feats that are all about speak with animals. Emerald Enclave is described as a very druidic faction. So druids, and every time I've played with these factions, druid characters and ranger characters go to that first. Like, yep, Emerald Enclave sounds like what I want. They pick that first, and then the system I had doesn't give them speak with animals, but this does. And so The ranger already has speak with animals on their spell list, so they just wasted a feat by taking their origin feat that just gives them speak with animals. And druids automatically have speak with animals prepared, so now it's a double waste for them, and that is a problem, right? It should do things for you that make sense for the theme it conveys, and the most likely characters to take it should not have any redundancies. Or if there are redundancies, they should put in like escape clauses that says, well, if you already have this spell, you get another spell from the druid spell list. Like at the very least, they need to do that. And the Emerald Enclave feats do not do that. They are hard coded to speak with animals only, and the last class who should ever be an Emerald Enclave member is a druid. So I super rank that one down for that. Anyway, that's kind of how this all works together, right? Greater Aberrant mark. All right, so this is a general feat, and it does have a prerequisite of having the Aberrant Dragonmark feat. Okay, and I list the prerequisites in column D for all of these, so you can see what the prerequisite is. Okay, so you can't just take this; you've got to have that origin equivalent feat that comes with the background, which means you're locked into one background to take this, or if the DM interprets it as you can take those Dragonmark feats, the origin equivalent ones, the DM may interpret those as you can take them with a general feat slot. Um, that one's kind of gray, so your DM may not interpret it that way. And if he doesn't or she doesn't, then you're locked in. The only way you can get these is by taking a specific background. You got to have a background that gives you the Dragonmark equivalent origin feat, and then that gives you access. It doesn't require you to take this, but gives you access to this greater feat, this greater Dragonmark feat. And note that these are not Dragonmark feats; these are general feats. See, these are general feats. Okay, so this one allows you to increase your constitution by 1 to a maximum of 20. You get improved fortitude, which gives you a. So what it does, all of these have this section where it improves whatever the D4 you could roll on, roll to whatever boost whatever check. And with the Aberrant mark, Dragon mark, it allowed you to boost a con save once per day. So with all the others, they allow you to boost some skill checks or ability checks or tool checks. So all of these just upgrade that to by a D6. Okay. So instead of rolling a D4, you roll a D6. And then this one also has the additional clause that you can use it. It recharges on every short rest. So now instead of once per long rest, it's every short rest, which is a significant improvement on this one. Mark of Inspiration. Okay, when you cast a cantrip, so not the cantrip you got from the Dragonmark feat, Aberrant Dragonmark feat, this is just any cantrip, okay? Triggers on any cantrip. You can roll 1 or 2 of your unexpended hit dice. You gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the number rolled, plus your constitution modifier, and one creature of your choice within 30 feet of you, not including you, takes force damage equal to the number rolled. Those dice are then expended. And you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So this is going to increase your single target range damage potential. I mean, I guess you could use it on melee cantrips as well. But yeah, so this is going to give you a little bit more survivability. It's not a lot of temporary hit points, and it's restricted by proficiency bonus uses. But there's no action economy, so it's not a bonus action on top of anything. It is the cantrip that you were going to do anyway. And cantrips you don't use very often in tiers 2 and 3. In tier 1, you use it because you don't have enough spell slots to do a spell very often. Tier 4, your cantrips usually have scaled so much that you start using cantrips again because it's you like Firebolt 4d10 damage plus anything else you add to it. Now this might make you want to use it more often in tiers 2 and 3 because adding 2 of your hit dice to it is quite a bit. Yeah, you're going to burn through your hit dice faster, but you're going to gain temporary hit points to compensate for that, and they have no duration, right? So the general rule on temporary hit points is if the thing that grants it to you doesn't say when they end, then they last till the next long rest. So you could trigger this, and even if you end the combat with those temporary hit points, you keep them to the next combat and the next combat as long as they last, as long as you have them until you start your next long rest. So this is pretty good, and relative to all other general feats, not relative to any Origin or Dragonmark feats. I say this is a B for survival because there's just a lot of ways to get temporary hit points. Now you have spells that give you temporary hit points, a number of them. There's a number of features to get temporary hit points. You have allies and feats giving out temporary hit points. You can't use these temporary hit points. You can't give these temporary hit points to anybody else. So it's a survival function, not a support function. But yeah, it's solid. I give it a solid B. And a C for range damage, but note that it is going to scale differently. Like in tier 1, adding that damage is going to feel more significant, and then it's going to taper off as you go up in levels. And there's going to be kind of this middle ground where you're just using cantrips less because you have better options with spells. But by tier 4, you might be using cantrips a lot again, and adding 1 or 2 hit dice to that is not only a significant damage boost, but expending 1 or 2 hit dice is going to hurt less because you have so many hit dice. So if you don't have any other hit dice expending features, then this is great. If you have a lot of other hit dice expending features, then the value of this goes way down fast, right? If you're the defiler sorcerer, or if you have, use arcane vigor a lot, or there's a lot of ways to spend hit dice now. So yeah, I give it a C for range damage, but note that that does change at different inflection points in your levels, and B for survival. Greater mark of detection. All right, you can increase any ability score by 1 to a maximum of 20, and all of these are like that now. So I'm not going to reiterate that just to save time. Every single one of these greater Dragonmark feats um, give you a choice of any ability score now, and all they do is just whatever the thing you use the D4 on, it just increases to a D6. Improved intuition, right? There was the deductive intuition was a part of the mark of detection origin equivalent feat. It used a D4, and now you just use a D6. And frankly, I don't rate that very highly. Because one, those are ability checks a lot of times, and ability checks are useful in some situations. I use them a lot, but you don't often fail by a lot, right? And going from a D4 to a D6 adds a net average of +1 to that, but you could still roll a 1. And a lot of times players are missing different checks like this by 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. It's not very often you're missing by that much. So this doesn't statistically doesn't help you nearly as much as often in situations that matter, especially for a general feat, right? On the D4 on an origin feat, I think is quite potent. Just upgrading that to a D6 on a general feat, I don't think is worth it, right? Like you would get way more mileage if you just took the skilled origin feat again, or if you took skill expert, which would give you a skill proficiency and expertise in something and an ability score increase. If you want to be good at a skill, you get way more mileage out of that than this. So that piece of these things are all frankly just really low in value. So I'm just going to focus in on the last part that all of them have, which is some sort of enhancement to the spell or feature you got from the Dragonmark feat. Okay. So Greater Mark of Detection's enhancement is when you use the magical detection benefit of your Mark of Detection to cast See Invisibility without a spell slot. So it is only that one casting you get for free from your Mark of Detection feat that you cast without a spell slot. You don't get this benefit on every casting of See Invisibility, only that one, which is once per day. And for that, I rank these ones down a lot too. And when you do that, then you can choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself, and that creature also gains the benefit of this spell. So 2 of you can see invisibility. See invisibility is pretty circumstantial. Yes, it was good to get it on an origin equivalent feat. On a general feat, I think this is not good at all. And this doesn't give you the see invisibility spell. All it does is enhance the see invisibility spell. Sorry, once per day, which is pretty bad. That's pretty bad. There like and not that there isn't value here, right? When I say that, everybody remember that what I'm saying is it just adds a small amount of value, right? There's value there. It's not nothing. It's not bad. It's just that it's a small amount of value, and compared to all the other choices you could be making with your general feats, this doesn't stack up, right? Fey Touched is so much better than this, just so much better. All right. So if you want to add some spell casting to your character, this doesn't even add a spell. All it does is enhance one spell once per day. So if you want better spell casting, get Fate Touched or Shadow Touched or even Vampire Touched. All of those give you more spells. This does not give you more spells, and more free castings of spells. This does not give you any free castings of spells. So this is pretty bad. I give it a D for support, a C for scouting, and a C for face. And I even think that's a bit generous. Greater Mark of Finding. Skip over the boilerplate, and we're going to go down to improved finding. When you use Finder's Magic, the Finder's Magic benefit of your Mark of Finding to cast Hunter's Mark without a spell slot, so yes, restricted to that one casting per day of that spell, the range of the spell is doubled, and you can modify the spell so the target can't benefit from the invisible condition for the duration. All right, so the Dragon Mark of this, the Dragon Mark of Finding, is quite good. It's one of the better ones, and they're all quite good, so that's saying something. This is one of the worst ones of the general level feats, the greater marks. Range of Hunter's Mark is already what, 90, and doubling that, like that range has never been a problem. I've seen players cast Hunter's Mark so many times, hundreds of times at this point. The range has never been a problem. So I seems useless right there. And this, so that the target can't benefit from the invisible condition. So the problem that would be useful, a little, tiny bit useful. The problem there is usually you don't know that they can turn invisible until they've already done it, right? And Hunter's Mark requires you to see them. Okay, so if they turn invisible, you can no longer see them, which means you can no longer cast Hunter's Mark on them unless they become visible, and then it only adds value if they turn invisible again. So some creatures can cast invisibility, but only a smaller subset of creatures can cast invisibility multiple times or at will. So if you know you're facing like an imp or a closet or a sprite, they can cast invisibility at will, right? So this has very limited, very niche circumstantial benefits. This one is is very low value, in my opinion, very low value. D for controlling a control function, C for a scouting function, C for survival and versatile, and I even think those C's are generous. All right, greater mark of handling. Skip over all the boilerplate and you get two features besides the boilerplate. So one is improved handling while you are mounted. Immediately after you hit a target within 5 feet of your mount with a melee attack roll, your mount can take a reaction to move up to its speed or take the attack action to make one attack, only your choice. So this is interesting, okay, because it doesn't say a melee attack roll on your turn, which means you could use the Sentinel feat, right? Somebody hits your mount uh, when it's not your turn. You use the Sentinel feat to attack them back, which triggers this, and now your mount can take a reaction to move as part of that round. So if the monster had like multi-attack, you could trigger all of this, and the mount could move away before the monster makes their additional attacks. Which if the monster doesn't have enough movement to catch your mount, which your mount, right, half its movement might be like 40 feet of movement, 30 or 40 feet of movement, which will outrun a lot of monsters. So that one's pretty interesting. It's pretty good when you're mounted, right? Yeah, and the fact that you can just make your mount attack. Mounts don't often have a great attack, and that's usually not the reason you have them. But for those scenarios where you don't care to run away, um, maybe it's a scenario of your mount's doing fine, you've enhanced it, and you got barding on it and things like that. And so on your turn, when you hit, you just have the mount attack also, and this just increases your DPR. Yeah, there's some interesting combos here. I'm going to kind of put it into the versatility category because it only applies to mounts. Okay, only when you're mounted, and it gives you some different options for versatility with the mount specifically. It doesn't feel right giving it a ranking for like tank or frontliner or skirmisher. I don't know. I could be talked into that. All right, and then subdue animal. As a magic action, you exert your command over one beast or monstrosity you can see within 30 feet of yourself. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw with the standard calculation using your wisdom, or have the frightened condition until the start of your next turn. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So first up, it says you exert command, and that threw me off a little bit because exert command feels more like the charm condition than the frightened condition. Although I could see how frighten it. You cow. Well, it's based on the word cow, right? You cow the animal. This would have been a little bit better. It made a little bit more sense if it was you could choose the charmed or frightened condition. I think to exert command over them, get them to do what you want, right? Exert command. And you can choose a beast or monstrosity. So, and there's no intelligence limit on the monstrosity, like we saw with the mark of handling Dragonmark feat version of this, right? Where you can cast animal friendship and speak with animals, and at level 3 you can cast it on monstrosities with an intelligence of 3 or lower. Okay, there's no intelligence limit here, so it's just any beast or monstrosity. So you can be frightening, and there are monstrosity stat blocks going, all the way up the CR scale. So, and there's lots and lots of them, right? Monstrosity is a common category of creature type you run into, whereas beast is a fairly limited one. So that's interesting. It takes your action though, and it's a magic action, so you can't be using this with like a hasted action because hasted action doesn't give you a magic action. And you cause the frightened condition until the start of your next turn. So it's basically you're sacrificing your action to maybe hinder them for 1 turn. I don't know if that's a good trade-off, right? If you could like target multiple creatures, that'd be a great trade-off. But it's one creature, kind of an iffy trade-off. It's a way to give yourself a support function, a controller function that doesn't use concentration and isn't a spell. So you can still cast, even though you use this magic action, you could still cast a spell with your bonus action. And there will be times when you're doing that, right? Maybe you're the healer and you're casting a healing word because somebody really needs to heal, but you don't need to use your channel divinity as your action, right? It's just not that scenario. And so you want to use a control function, right, to frighten something. That'll happen. It could work. It's not very strong. I think the mount portion is better, but again, very restricted, just mounts. And nothing about the name of Greater Mark of Handling says mounts. So I'm going to give this a D for controller, a D for face, and a C for versatility. But note that you can optimize around this. I very much believe you could optimize around this and get like an get A ranked value out of this if you optimize specifically with mounts and you're a wisdom based character, right? Those are the two gotchas coming together there. So I think there's potential. It's just, yeah, if you're not good at optimizing and analyzing all the rules and the various different things and bringing them together to make it work, then I probably wouldn't do this. Oath of the Oath, Paladin, Oath of the Oathbreaker, Oathbreaker Paladin. I think that's the way to say it. They have a lot of functions where if you cause a creature to be frightened, then there's additional rider effects on top of that. Like the current 2014 version of which is Legacy now, of the Oathbreaker is that, right, their movement speed drops to 0 if they're frightened by you. If they're within your Aura of Protection radius, I think. That is even better. That could make this, very much an A-ranked feat or give you A-ranked value for that build. But this is going to be build specific, and you need to know what you're doing to bring all these pieces together and make it work. If you're kind of new or you're role play forward and you just don't care that much about the mechanics, skip this. Okay, this does require optimization to make it good. Greater Mark of Healing. We're going to skip over all the boilerplate that's the same for all of these and go down to improved healing. You can now use the healing touch benefit of your Mark of Healing feat to cast Cure Wounds without a spell slot a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Additionally, when you cast Cure Wounds and roll dice to determine the number of hit points restored, you can treat any 1, 2, or 1 or 2 on the roll as a 3. Okay, so this one does give you more free castings. Okay, it doesn't give you any new spells because you already got Cure Wounds from the Mark of Healing feat. So this doesn't give you any new spells. It just gives you the ability to cast Cure Wounds more often. And if you take this right at level 2, it's going to give you 1 extra casting of Cure Wounds because your proficiency bonus is 2, and you already had 1 free casting. So you're going from 1 to 2 at level 4. But when you reach level 5, now you went from 1 to 3. And having a bunch of extra free castings of Cure Wounds can be beneficial, particularly on a half caster build, right? So I've seen a lot of times where people want to make a half caster and make them the primary healer. Like I've seen that with Redemption Paladins and a few others. And this would go a long way to helping you. The biggest problem with trying to be the main healer, this would also be super good for the Celestial Warlock trying to be a full healer, right? Because they just don't have the spell slots to keep up with the healing. Okay, and that's the problem, right? You don't have the spell slots as a half caster or a warlock to keep up as the primary healer. Even with your healing light feature of the Celestial Warlock, that's just not enough. And the Paladins, even with their lay on hands, it's usually not enough to keep up. It just isn't enough, okay? So getting this actually will go a long way to helping you keep up, right? If you want to make an artificer, like an alchemist, and you're trying to be the primary healer as an alchemist, I would seriously consider this, right? You're going to get a lot of extra castings of Cure Wounds, which you need. And they're free castings, which means you can also cast Healing Word on the same turn with a spell slot, because this is not using a spell slot. You also get this boost on the Cure Wounds, and I crunched the numbers, and it's like you get a 0.375 healing increase, so less than half a point of healing per D8 of the Cure Wounds, which means you add those together and it comes out to 0.75 increased healing on average for each casting of Cure Wounds. And remember, this casting is always at the lowest level, so it'll always be level 1 casting, which is still not bad. On average, you're talking, even without this boost, you're talking, what is that, 9 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, which will be 3 at level 4, should be 4 at level 5, and eventually will be 5. So you're talking eventually this is going to be 14 points of healing each time you do it. Not bad, not bad. And the boost from that last clause is going to increase it by 0.75, which I mean, there's not a lot of ways to boost to boost your healing, so it's pretty good for that. I do wish they had written right in here how it reconciles with the healer feat. If you have the healer origin feat, which you could only get if you were a warlock or a human, because if you have this, then you had to take Mark of Healing, which you got from your background, so you couldn't get the healer feat from your background. You have to get it another way. But you could have both of these, and it would just be nice, but just said, here's how those reconcile, right? Which is you get to choose which one happens, right? If you rolled a 1, you could re-roll using the healer feat, and if you roll a 1 there too, then it just upgrades to a 3, right? Or no, this supersedes it, and this always overwrites the healer feat, which would be bad because now the healer feat that you took is useless. And I could see a DM interpreting a whole spectrum there between those 2 points of like, well, one being very draconic and minimizing the value of both of these, the other one being very generous and actually making it decently helpful. Like if you can just try the re-roll on the 1, and then if you still get a 1, upgrade it to a 3, that's actually quite good. That's probably going to raise, I mean, help me out, somebody who's good at statistics. How much is that going to raise your average, casting? I think that's going to give you a lot more than the 0.75 because you're guaranteed to get the minimum of a 3. So you might as well try the reroll, which could give you much higher. And if it doesn't give you higher than a 3, then you still get a 3. So now all of a sudden, reroll, reroll is awesome. I mean, you do it anyway because you can only reroll on a 1. So this one's pretty good, and I give it a B because I don't think every healer should take it. All right, if you're a cleric or a druid healer or a bard healer, and you're a full caster, or you're a wizard with the Dragonmark of healing, which gives you all the healing spells you need, or most of them, right? If you're a full caster, this is redundant. You don't also need this. Now, I guess a wizard couldn't do this, right? Because a wizard, this is Mark of Healing, greater Mark of Healing, duh. So yeah, a wizard could do this. If you're a full caster, I don't think you want this. You want something else that's more valuable to get with your general feat slot than this. Whereas half casters, and you're trying to be the healer, I would definitely get this. And so I kind of average that out. For the half casters and warlocks, this is maybe an A. And for the full casters, it's like a C. So I'm going to give it a B as the average in the middle, which is a signal to you that if you sort this and you're adding healing functions to your character and you sort it and see this one spotted there, that B is a signal to say, don't just take it, but maybe stop, read it, think about how it applies to your character, okay? Or go back and watch this video, whatever helps you build your character better. So B for healer, D for versatility. Greater Mark of Hospitality. We're going to skip over the boilerplate and go down to Inspired Hospitality, which is when you cast Purify Food and Drink. Now, this isn't limited to the free casting you get from the Mark of Hospitality feed, okay? So keep that in mind. But you can modify the spell so that instead of its normal effect, each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you is refreshed. Note that there is a limiter at the end. Once you modify the spell with this benefit, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So yeah, completely unnecessary, I think. All right, but what does it do for you when it says you're refreshed? So each creature that is refreshed, their exhaustion level is reduced by 1, which is pretty good. The only other ways to reduce exhaustion is Greater Restoration, which is a 5th level spell, and then Rangers have that feature. I want to say Tireless. Do they still get that? Yep. Rangers still have that ability, level 10 Tireless, that lets them decrease exhaustion whenever they finish a short rest by 1. So nice. Sorry, I couldn't remember. I know they added a bunch of things with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and then they took some of it away with 2024, and I doubted myself for a second there on whether or not the Rangers still had this in 2024, but they do. So good. And as of right now, those are the only ways to reduce your exhaustion level. I think there's some magic items that can do it too. But yeah, so that's interesting, but it's just exhaustion is just not that common. Most DMs don't play with it very much. I've heard of DMs who have great ideas for using it a lot more often. And for me, I kind of struggle to make sure I find the right balance of it. I do want it to be meaningful and use it more often, but it's a super punishing condition that is hard to remove. So I don't want to like hit people with it too much. So I usually try to make it a thing that's at least in some way tied to player decisions. I don't hit them with it unless it's related to a player decision. Like they intentionally don't sleep and try to stay up all night. They intentionally stay too long in areas that are very hot or very cold, right? There's the extreme temperatures way that you can get exhaustion, right? So if they intentionally stay there, and I let them know this is very, very hot place, It's extremely hot. You can feel yourself wearing out faster. If you're here for an hour, you can roll a Constitution saving throw. I give them those kind of warnings and then let them make their decisions. And if they just ignore it and hang out there for 8 hours and try to take a long rest, then they're going to roll 8 Constitution saving throws versus exhaustion. Okay. What else do you get? The creature also gains temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus plus your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma modifier, whatever you chose when you selected this feat. Okay, so that's not a lot of temporary hit points, and it's once per day. Now you hand those out to everybody, and you could do this with a free casting of Purify Food and Drink. So they don't have to be exhausted for you to cast this. You could cast it as an action and give your whole party, everyone within 30 feet. I mean, it could be any number of creatures, that many temporary hit points, and it would be equal to proficiency bonus, which is 2 to 6, plus your spellcasting or one of these mental stat modifiers, which is 0 to 5, right? You would want this to be, you would want to choose something that has like at least a positive modifier, right? If you're a barbarian and you have this, I don't know if I definitely wouldn't choose this as a barbarian. If you don't have a good mental stat, you probably don't want to choose most of these, okay? Frankly, because they're all based on some sort of mental stat. So this one's not very good. It's not very good. If they had removed this, or gave you like proficiency bonus number of castings per day, this would be a lot better. It would be a lot better. But Purify Food and Drink is not a good spell. It's super, circumstantial. I think I've seen a player cast it once. And they did it as a ritual, and it didn't work because they tried to cast it as a ritual in front of people, and so 10 minutes of like spell casting in a social encounter is a problem. So I don't think it even worked. I don't even think they got to finish it. This is pretty bad, or very low value. Sorry, that's the way I should say it. It's very low value. So I'm going to give it a D for healer function, a D for support functions, and a C for face functions because of the boilerplate stuff that I skipped. Greater Mark of Making. Skip the boilerplate, go down to improved making. When you use the spellsmith benefit of your Mark of Making feat to cast magic weapon without a spell slot, you can cast the spell as its 3rd level version, which makes it a +2 instead of a +1 bonus to the weapon. Magic weapon is an okay spell. It's pretty good when you don't have magic weapons and useless when you do have magic weapons. And you can't even like cast this on your +1 magic weapon to upgrade it to a +2 magic weapon temporarily, because you just can't cast magic weapon on magic weapons at all. You can only cast it on a non-magical weapon, which I think is an unnecessary restriction. I would have said let them take the higher of the two, right? So you could have benefited from this still on things that don't have a +1 to or any kind of bonus to attack and damage rolls. Okay, so that makes this pretty poor. So I'm going to give it a D for support function, a D for self buff, and a C for versatility. The C for versatility is in the upgrading your ability checks from a D4 to a D6. So the biggest value you get out of this is that D6, and I still don't think that's very good, right? This is pretty low value. Greater Mark of Passage. Skip all the boilerplate and go down to Inspired Passage. When you use the magical passage benefit of your Mark of Passage feat to cast Misty Step without a spell slot, so it's limited, you can also choose up to 2 willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of yourself before you teleport. Each target can take a reaction to also teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space it can see. So now we're starting to see more of these, like, not only do you teleport functions, but you can help other people teleport functions, which I kind of like. I do like it. I think there's value in doing that. It's unfortunate that it's still limited to once per day. Again, I think that's an unnecessary restriction that this otherwise could have been quite good. And it takes a reaction. I mean, the fact that it takes a reaction is itself a nice restriction to keep this from being overpowered, right? Because there's a lot of reaction usage out there, options out there, and using your reaction to teleport would be a meaningful choice, right? Do I use my reaction to teleport along with this, my ally, or do I save my reaction and use it for shield, or save my reaction and use it for silvery barbs, or things like that, or defensive duelist? Yeah. So yeah, it's unfortunate they restricted it. I don't think that was necessary. But they also, so here's the interesting part of this too. The allies who teleport, they don't have to teleport next to your destination. They can teleport at any place that they can see up to 30 feet, which is pretty cool. A lot of the other teleport functions, like the Eladrin teleport function, and I think the Archfey, when they teleport somebody with them, they have to end up within 5 feet of them. So they don't have to end up within 5 feet of you, which makes it better in that way too. I'm going to give it a B. Only because it's once per long rest, and that's it, which is unfortunate. But I do think that that's going to come up most long rests where your allies would like to teleport around with you, and you triggering triggering the teleport for them without them spending any of their action or bonus actions, or even if they don't have a teleport function, that's pretty good. So a B for support function and a D for versatility. Greater Mark of Scribing. Skip all the boilerplate, and we're down to Inspired Scribing. When you cast Comprehend Languages, you can modify the spell to encompass up to 3 willing creatures that you can see within 30 feet of yourself. Each chosen creature also gains the benefits of the spell for the duration. In addition, for the duration of the spell, you and the chosen creatures can communicate telepathically with each other while within 1 mile of each other. Once you modify the spell with this benefit, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So it is limited to once per day. Again, probably unnecessarily, because this is pretty weak. The giving your allies comprehend languages when you already have comprehend languages is just really low value. I mean, usually when you're in these kind of scenarios and somebody casts comprehend languages, like one person translating for the rest of the party is enough. So it doesn't really matter that much that the more people can understand, right? I mean, I get in real world scenarios that actually would be quite valuable, right? Giving the ability instead of having to translate for somebody because there's always something lost in translation. I mean, I'm bilingual, right? And so I feel this part in my soul, right? There's even though I'm bilingual, my translations from English to Spanish, because English is my native language, um, are not perfect, not even close, right? So just giving somebody like you'd be the best translator ever, right? Instead of translating, you just be like, hold on a sec, now you just understand. Okay, real world scenarios, this is fantastic. In game, it hardly I just that probably has no value at all because usually the way it happens is the DM just explains directly to the one character who has comprehend languages, the one player, this you now understand what this is and they're saying this and then everybody else just hears it, right? And at most the one player says I translate for the rest of the party, boom, but now everybody's already heard it and understands it equally well, right? And unless you want to be passing a lot of notes or DMing through Discord on that with that one player, which you could do, it usually is kind of boring for the rest of the players to sit there while you're having this one-on-one interaction with that one player. So I don't do it that way. I just let everybody hear, which makes this part of it completely useless. Now, the more important, more valuable part of this is the telepathy. Okay, so once per day you can gain telepathy for is it an hour? Yep, 1 hour because that's the duration of comprehend languages. So you would get telepathy within 1 mile with you and 3 other allies for 1 hour, which is pretty good if you're on some sort of scouting mission specifically. Okay, a lot of the times telepathy doesn't matter. It's really up to the DM to make sure it matters, right? Like one of the things I do is because the players need some way to strategize during combat, right? Which is a representation of them having been adventurers together for some amount of time, right? These players haven't played together maybe that much, but their characters should have some amount of experience of weeks or months or years where they've been a group together and they would just know what that other person's likely to do in the scenario, right? And so the players need some amount of time to strategize above table, right? So I let them do it at the top of the round. This was a suggestion by Sly Flourish that I saw, and I'm like, that's great. I love it. And I've used it ever since. So at the top of the round, they can discuss, it's above board, it's meta game, whatever, and the monsters don't hear, and they can talk about whatever they want. But then once we're in initiative order, I say, you can't do that anymore. If you say anything, first off, you only get 6 words for free per your turn. If you want to talk when it's not your turn, you have to use a reaction, 6 words. Um, and that doesn't count as the influence action. It's just 6 free words. And if you say anything, the monsters will hear and react accordingly. Okay, so that's how I make telepathy more valuable for not just scouting missions. And even then, it doesn't affect a lot. Usually, the players are able to get most of what they need to out of that, the top of the round discussion. So this is pretty, pretty very quite very, quite circumstantial. Now, if your party if your party is building around telepathy and nobody else has telepathy, and there's like you want to be a whole stealth type of party, everybody's a rogue or some kind of like everybody has a stealth proficiency or expertise, and they're all really good at stealth, and the whole party's strategy is to sneak up on things, ambush them, and kill them in the first round, then this might be A for you, right? But it's quite circumstantial. You need to build around it. You would need to kind of optimize around telepathy. And then this is quite good because it's the equivalent of casting like Rare's telepathic bond, but you can do it at level 4. Rare's telepathic bond is a 5th level spell that you don't normally get access to until level 9 if you're a full caster. So that's 5 levels earlier. Unfortunately, once you hit level 9, this now became worthless. because you can just cast Rary's Telepathic Bond ritually for free as often as you want every day, and it lasts an hour of telepathy for the whole group, not just 4 of you. So yeah, it's quite circumstantial. If you have a DM that's going to let you swap out your feat once you like hit level 9, it's going to be better. But most of the time, I don't see DMs doing that. I do that, but I don't see most DMs doing that. So I'm going to give this a D, okay, which is just a sign that says, unless you can address all of these ifs, if that I just talked about, you probably shouldn't take this. And if you can address all of them, then maybe this is an A for you. Okay, so D for scouting, D for face, D for versatility. Mark of Sentinel. All right, skip all the boilerplate, and we're down to improved Sentinel, which is when you use the Vigilant Guardian benefit of your Mark of Sentinel feat, you can also make one attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike as part of the same reaction. So that's, and if you remember, and this is one of the things I kind of don't love that they did about this, which is every one of these refers back to the Dragonmark origin equivalent feat. And so it's like, wait, what does Vigilant Guardian do? What it does, that's the thing that lets you swap places with somebody. You swap the places with them, proficiency bonus times per day, and then you take the hit instead. And it is triggered when they are hit, not when they are attacked, right? So when they're hit and then you swap places, then you're automatically hit instead. So it's not super great. But this allows you, as part of that, to make a reaction attack, which is a lot better. It's still limited to proficiency bonus times per day. And this is a general feat, right? I think you would just get way more mileage if you just took Sentinel, right? Just take the Sentinel feat, not this, and you'd be better off if you're trying to be a tank that protects your allies, okay? If you're a spellcasting tank, then the Origin feat is great for you. The Origin equivalent feat, Dragonmark, Mark of Sentinel, is great for you. I, probably still wouldn't take this because if you're a spellcasting tank, then your attacks aren't very good, and just getting an extra attack with your weapon, proficiency bonus times per day, isn't going to be super great. But you can optimize around it, right? Like clerics get that extra, and druids get that extra, 1d8 at level 8 or something like that. It's level 7 or 8, and then they get an extra 2d8 once per turn. I think it's actually once on your turn though. If it was once per turn, that would be a lot better because then it would trigger as your reaction. So anything that gives you a once per turn, not once per round, reaction attack or adds damage on that in that way is going to be a lot better with these. So like sneak attack would trigger again with this. But again, if you're a rogue and you're not actually trying to be the tank, then just get Sentinel. That'll trigger more often, and you don't have to take the damage for them instead. So, yeah, I don't think this one's very good. But it's not as bad as some of the others. So I'm going to give it a C for tanking. A C as a frontliner because it is an extra attack. It's like weaponizing your reaction. A C for scouts and a C for face because of some of the boilerplate we skipped. So not the worst. Greater Mark of Shadow. Skip all the boilerplate down to improved shadow. When you use the shape shadow's benefit of your Mark of Shadow feat to cast invisibility without a spell slot, so it's once per day, you can cast the spell at its level 3 version, which just means you can target 2 people instead of 1. I don't think that's very good. I mean, sure, for scouting missions, being able to take somebody along with you, so you're not alone. But those scouting missions are just not like where you split the party and send somebody off. Just not common. People don't do it very often. If you try to optimize around that, this will have a lot more value. If you don't, intentionally lean into that and try to optimize for it, this is not good. Not good. So I'm going to give it a D for support functionality because you can make more people invisible. A C for scouting, that's the best use of this, and a D for face stuff, and that's because of the D6 upgrade. So, Greater Mark of Storm. Skip all the boilerplate, and we're down to Improved Storm. When you use the Storm magic benefit of your Mark of Storm feat to cast Gust of Wind without a spell slot, so limited to once per day, you also gain a fly speed of 60 feet for the duration of the spell. A fly speed of 60 feet at level 4, potentially, with a general feat is super good. But Gust of Wind lasts 1 minute, and you can only do this once per day. So you're going to get a fly speed of 60 feet once per day while you're concentrating. It's going to take your concentration while you're concentrating on Gust of Wind. And the fly spell, if you're a full caster, is right around the corner at level 5. So this is like not great in general, but if you really want a fly speed at level 4 before waiting for level 5, this is give you a benefit 1 level earlier. If you are not a spellcaster and you don't even have access to the fly spell, or you're a half caster and you're not going to get access to the fly spell until like level 9, this is give you that benefit a lot sooner. It still takes your concentration, right? And again, I can't emphasize enough, like putting this on a non-caster who will never get access to the fly spell is a lot more valuable. Okay, it's still only once per day, but a lot of times you only need to fly once per day. So I'm going to give this a B because for certain builds this is an A, but for most builds this is a B. For like full casters who have access to the fly spell, I would say this is a D because you're going to get the fly spell at level 5 and you can cast it more often and it lasts longer. Sure, it's not quite as fast, if I recall correctly, but it's just not worth spending a general feat, to get this when you can just, you're just going to have the fly spell anyway very soon. For half casters, this is maybe a B or C kind of thing. Or for a warlock, right, who doesn't want to spend a packed spell slot on the fly spell, which I'm not even sure they can get access to, or spend one of the packed spell slots to fly other ways, which there are other ways to do it, polymorph, uh, yeah, different things, different ways to do it. Maybe this is worth more, and maybe it's a B in those kind of scenarios. So I'm going to average it out and call it a B. It's a B for self buff and a B for versatility, for enhanced mobility, and in just a buff of being able to fly in some combat scenarios where maybe you're facing a lot of things that don't have ranged attacks, or you have to fly over battlefield obstacles, things like that. So it's an interesting one. Okay, make sure you know what you're doing when you pick it, so that you make sure that you're going to get the most value out of it and you're not going to just waste it, right? If you're a wizard and you take this, oh, it sounds super cool. One level later, you get the fly spell. And then you're like, wait, now this feels bad. Okay, so just make sure you're aware of all the different nuances. But this one can be pretty good. Of all of the greater marks, I only gave 4 of them a B, none of them an A, and most of them are, the rest are C's and D's. So this is one of the B's. Greater mark of warding. We're going to skip all the boilerplate, and we're down to improved warding. When a creature makes an attack roll against you or a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself, you can take a reaction to impose disadvantage on that roll. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Which is super weak. I mean, sure, you're causing disadvantage, but there is already by level 4, a lot of builds have a more valuable use for their reaction. This is a very poor use of your reaction. Now, if you don't have any use for your reaction, this is an upgrade, okay? And if you're like a support character who, you're the healer, playing healer and support, you're standing back, and you're not getting targeted much anyway because you got a tank in the party who's drawing all the fire, and you don't care that you're not going to have your reaction for your shield spell, and you just want to be like imposing disadvantage on attacks. Okay, this is going to be okay for you. It's not going to be super strong because it's just one attack. It's not for the whole round. And like the protection fighting style used to be like this, where you would impose disadvantage on one attack, and the real downside is you have to declare it before the attack roll. Okay, you don't declare it after and cause a reroll. This is declared before the attack roll is made, and then they roll twice and take the lower. All right, you impose disadvantage, which means you might be blowing this when they would have missed anyway, or you might be blowing this and they still hit. Right, that's the downside of it. And you're wasting your reaction, and it's limited to proficiency bonus times per day. Whereas the protection fighting style in 2014 was very similar. It was only melee range, and yeah, you had to have a shield or a weapon. I think you had to have a shield actually for protection fighting style, and it only worked against one attack, but it was unlimited usage, and that was still a very bad fighting style. Like no one ever took it. It was just because it was bad. And this functions the same. It's got a range, but it's limited to proficiency bonus uses. So this is pretty bad, like very low value. I wouldn't take this, right? Ironically, for all of these that are C's and D's, which is most of them, the Dragonmark Origin feat equivalent feat is very good. Like most of them, that one is very good. And the upgrade to it, which is a general feat, is very bad. And I wouldn't take most of these, okay? But the one I would take is Potent Dragonmark. All right. The only general feat in this whole list that gets an S, in fact, I think this might be the first S that I rated any feat, is this one. Any general feat is this. And this one is super good. Super, super good. It's amazing. So what it does, again, you can choose any ability score to increase by 1 to a maximum of 20. And what it does, remember how I kept emphasizing with those Dragonmark origin equivalent feats where I would emphasize that these spells are added to your spell list, they're not automatically prepared? This now makes them automatically prepared. They're just prepared, uh, which is amazing. So you just go from like you just have like extra 9 spells automatically prepared. And by the way, they're prepared even if you're this debate came up in on my server, my Discord server yesterday. If you're a multi-class caster, right, you're level 3 levels of wizard and 3 levels of cleric, for whatever reason, you have fifth level spells. You have third level spell slots now, but you can't prepare third level spells. So you'd only be upcasting to use your third level spell slots. But this says always prepared, um, which may mean that you have these spells. You're capable of casting third level spells. You would have these prepared now, and you could use these with your third level spell slots that you can't use with any of your cleric or wizard spell slots, prepared spells. So if that's the case, this is even more powerful, right? This now is a huge benefit for those multi-class full casters who have higher level spell slots than they can prepare. It's just is S tier, right? Okay, super good. To make it even better, like if that wasn't enough, right? They could have stopped right there, and this would have been an A. I would have given this an A for anything if they just stopped right there. But wait, there's more. Okay. Dragonmark spellcasting. You have an extra spell slot to cast the spells granted by your Dragonmark feat. You gain a spell slot. The spell slot's level is half your level rounded up to a maximum of level 5. So that's the same as a full caster progression. Okay. You regain the expended spell slot when you finish a short or long rest. This is just, they just keep adding and just throwing stuff at this, like just make it awesome and make it more awesome. I can't, like if they had just said it's one spell slot once per long rest, I still might have given this an S, but it's recovers on a short rest. Just amazing. Amazing. Like this is, I don't know if this is borderline. I don't know if this would be OP if you could just take it as a general feat by anyone anywhere. Okay, but this is limited. You do have to have the background, right? You've got to take one of those Dragonmark backgrounds that gives you the Dragonmark origin feat, origin equivalent feat, and then you can take this. If it wasn't so, and all of those are limited to the Eberron campaign. So if your DM says no Eberron campaign stuff, these are out. Okay. Um, so there's a lot of ifs, a lot of conditions, a lot of things you have to, decisions you have to spend to get this. But if you can get this, do it. Don't even read the other greater marks. Like those, none of those are worth it. This is the best by far. Take this one. I mean, you can get both. You can get one of those and this one, but this is the one. Okay. Uh, Super strong, and you can use this spell slot to cast only a spell you've prepared because of your Dragonmark feat or the Dragonmark preparation benefit of this feat. So that gives you the ability, like with the Mark of Healing, you've got Cure Wounds and Lesser Restoration prepared because of that, plus the table of 9 spells. So you actually have 11 spells prepared because of those feats. This is saying you can use this spell slot to cast any of those 11 spells. You can't use it to cast any spell. This is still very, very good. Warlocks, I mean, anyone wants this, right? Half casters, you now have a spell slot higher than what you can normally cast. So good. Warlocks, you have another spell slot that comes back on a short rest. Amazing. Like you're a barbarian and you now have a spell slot that's 5th level when you're level 9. Okay. Amazing. I would still take this as a barbarian. And also, I would get the Dragonmark that gives you the Armor of Agathis. You're now casting Armor of Agathis once per short rest with a 5th level spell slot as a barbarian. Holy crap. That is a super strong combo. This is S tier all the way. This is your level 4 pick. If you've got a Dragonmark feat, this is your level 4 pick. Just do it. Trust me, you'll love it. Don't look back. It's too good. I don't know. It's great. And the epic boon, which is the Boon of Siberys. Remember, Siberys is one of those 3 dragons from the origin creation myth of Eberron. And this is the first, in my opinion, S tier epic boon as well. So 2 S tier feats in this book. All right, so this one is limited. Your prerequisite is level 19 as per normal, but it is also limited to the Eberron campaign. So your DM has total prerogative to say, nope, you can't use that. I mean, they can ban anything they want anyway. But if they want to allow stuff from other campaign worlds, this is out. But otherwise, if they don't ban, limit you to one campaign, then this is in, right? Because this one isn't even restricted to you having a Dragonmark. Okay, you don't have to take one of the Dragonmark backgrounds to give you the Dragonmark origin feat. You do not need to take the Greater Mark feat. This is just all on its own, as long as you're in an Eberron campaign and you're level 19. All right, you can increase any ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. Great. And Aberrant Magic. Choose a level 8 or lower spell from the Sorcerer spell list, or a spell from the Siberys Dragonmark spell list table below, which is this one. You always have that spell prepared. You can cast it once without a spell slot or spell components, and you regain the ability to cast it in that way when you finish a short or long rest. Holy cow! And you can use any mental stat for the spellcasting ability. That is crazy. Crazy. Okay, you get like most of the time you have one 8th level spell slot per day. That's it. There is no other way to do that, unless you have like an unspelled, legendary magic item. Okay, this is S tier. Okay, not only do you get a free level 8 or lower sorcerer spell prepared, or one of these. By the way, this is a suggested dragon mark. So if you do have a dragon mark of like handling, you do not have to take animal shapes. This is just suggested. You can do any of these you want. Also, 4 of these are already on the sorcerer spell list. So I wish they had done a little bit more due diligence in the creation of this so that we didn't have to parse that and say, oh, I mean, that's already listed, right? Demiplane, plane shift, teleport, and true seeing are all on the sorcerer spell list. Okay, so anyway, this is still super good. All right, there are some really good 7th and 8th level spells on the sorcerer spell list. Some of these are very good. This is on the druid spell list. This is like make your own army of like elephants. I think CR4. Heroes Feast, right? You can't just so strong. You want at least one person in the party to have it. And by the way, you cast it without spell slots or spell components. So Heroes Feast, you usually have to provide a 1,000 gold piece jeweled bowl that is consumed by the spell. Not if you cast it this way. And you can do it once per short rest. Heroes Feast once per short rest. What the heck? Holy crap. Maze is super strong. There's no save, right? So you legendary monster in the middle of a fight and they have all these strong minions. Goodbye, legendary monster. You just maze them and they're gone. Now, if they have a high intelligence score and high investigation score, they might come back sooner. But if they don't have a good intelligence and investigation score, they may never come back. All right, and the big boss is just gone, and you can do that once per short rest. That is so strong. Mind blank, is so strong, right? You have like you're immune to psychic damage. You have advantage on intelligence saves. You can't be, nothing can detect you. No divination spell can detect you. Like it's just really, really strong. Regenerate isn't a super good healing spell on its own, but if you can cast it once per short rest, it lasts an hour, which means you're always regenerating. So just always regenerate. It takes 1 minute to cast. Every hour, once a minute, you just like boom, cast it. You're regenerating now, and then you take another short rest, boom, cast it again. It's just holy moly. I don't know what else to say about that. That is just crazy strong. This might be, the number one pick of epic boons for everybody, right? If I was a marshal, I might still take this. This might be better than combat prowess. I mean, you could go either way and it would be fine, right? Like you're allowed to do whatever you want. Like combat prowess is still great for marshals. This is also really great for marshals. Just like I'm a fighter, but I can also, cast animal shapes, or I can maze people and I'm a fighter. And no, I'm not even an Eldritch Knight. I'm a battle master and I just maze people once per short rest. And that's like war crimes, just to like maze people, right? Or turn a village of peasants into elephants that rampage, right? Like talk about the war crimes you're committing with this thing. And you can do that multiple times. It's not even once per day. Okay. I can't even say more about it. This is super, super good. Super good. I don't know if I'd say it's OP or game breaking, because none of these spells, like you're already level 17, people got 9th level spells. So none of this is like, I don't know if this is game breaking, but it is super good. So great. All right. Good. We needed more really good feats in the game.